Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Always look to the sky. The Dr. Sky Experience is on the air. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
And good morning once again. The Dr. Sky Experience proudly here on Talk Radio 77 WABC. And throughout our 2-hour show on this Friday night into Saturday morning, no matter where you're calling or listening to us, always great guests and great information as you tell us. If you'd like very much to get in touch with us, it's very simple. You can call us at 1-800-848-9222. That's simply 1-800-848-9222, which stands for what? 9222 WABC. That'll be your turn to be heard here on this great radio station. And we encourage you to go check out the Dr. Sky Experience podcast, just in case you have friends out there that you're talking up about this particular show. Thank you. They can, of course, listen to the various excerpts and shows that we do have here. And also go to WABCRadio.com and Red Apple Audio Networks to learn much more about that. You know, from last week's show, ladies and gentlemen, people are giving us, high marks on what we're talking about here. And tuning in tomorrow, we do have a very special guest. But let me also paraphrase something. Many of the callers, and we appreciate you greatly, are telling us we really would like to see us have more extended time with individual guests here on the show. So what we've decided to do in many cases is to do a 2-hour interview, as many radio stations do around the nation, so that not only you can hear what the great guests are talking about and their experiences, but you also have an opportunity to call in, and that, I think, is very important. First of all, I'd like to say happy birthday to Aurora. Who's Aurora? She's 3 years old, and she happens to be, the most beautiful little Bichon Maltese dog in the world, and we love her so much, and she never misses a show, so we want to say hello. Happy birthday to Aurora. Ladies and gentlemen, so many things happening in the world today. And what we'd like to do is talk about some things that go on in the nighttime sky, of course. Many of you want to hear these great subjects from the realms of astronomy, space, aviation, and weather. And what we talk about here is to give you kind of a quick update on what's going on in the nighttime sky. And I hope you had an opportunity to see this most beautiful and magnificent full moon, the beautiful full flower moon that occurred on the 12th. That moon itself was what we call an apogee moon, meaning it was farthest away from the Earth. So even if your eyes couldn't discern the difference, it certainly was something quite spectacular. So now as we move into the about third weekend of May 2025, the moon moves on to its last quarter phase, meaning it rises at midnight. And what you can see is that half-lit moon as it continues to ascend into our skies. And that happens to be something beautiful in the sky because you can actually see it in the daytime. How many people in the listening audience of the Dr. Sky Experience have actually said, wow, I can actually see the moon in the daytime. I never thought you could do that. That last quarter moon rides very high into the sky, into the morning. And then things get actually much, much better, in my opinion, because the moon continues to wane. And then what do we find? We find the moon moving as a thin, waning crescent, rising earlier and earlier as we get towards sunrise. And then we come to something on the calendar called the dark of the moon. And what is that? That happens to be a time and period when the moon, of course, is invisible to us. But for all of you out there that want to see some really faint sky objects, we do appreciate this time of the month. Why? Because as the holiday season opens up, don't forget, Memorial Day, which is considered the non-official way to start summer, so many people are getting away from city lights. And, let me also paraphrase this, you still can see many objects in the bright lights of cities. But for those of you that are traveling out and away from the city, the dark of the moon, which is what we call simply new moon, gives you a much better opportunity to see some of these faint sky objects. So in conclusion, in our sky report, I just wanted to mention a few things. And of course, your questions on these subjects, we're here for you. 1-800-848-9222 as we take it early into this particular late Friday night, into early Saturday morning. we find out that at this particular time of the month, we find ourselves looking for this center of the Milky Way. And what am I saying? In the zodiac constellations that rise, we get an opportunity to see right around midnight, looking into the southeast, the beautiful constellation of Scorpius the Scorpion. And then we also get a chance to see the core of the Milky Way, and that is the great constellation Sagittarius the Archer. And I mentioned in our sky update that the central part of the Milky Way is some 27,000 light years away. Well, let's talk about the beauty side, because anybody can look this information up. When you're looking out with a pair of binoculars, at that particular time when there's dark skies, you get to see this most amazing array of the star clouds of the Milky Way. And that, to me, is most impressive. So don't forget, those are some of the highlighted activities that are taking place. But I want to thank our producer, Tony, our helmsman, who navigates this starship through time and space. And I just wanted to ask him, I didn't hear that, if we do have our guest on the line. I was hoping that we do have our guest. Well, folks, let me just mention something. What we do here on the Dr. Sky Show is talk about many, many subjects. And how many of you out there have actually even read something about something called the quantum world? That is where the atomic world is just opening up and so many mysteries are happening as the scientists study the thing called the quantum world. So our special guest today, this is something very different, and I hope everybody out there will stay with us and appreciate the depth of the conversation that we're going to have. In a moment, we're going to introduce Father Nathan Kessel. He's a Dominican priest, and he talks about in his series of books called Afterlife Interrupted Series. Is death survivable? Does time exist in the afterlife? And from the science side, what we're trying to do in these 2 hours is blend together the concept of, is time an illusion? What do we know when we pass? And who better than an individual that I've sought out and been following now pretty regularly after we've talked for a few months? I want to introduce by giving a little background to Father Nathan Kessel. He's a lecturer, workshop facilitator, a retreat director, who also happens to be a Catholic priest. He's originally from Groves, Texas. He graduated from Trinity University in San Antonio and entered the Dominican order in 1979. He received his master's and master's in divinity degrees from the Dominican School of Philosophy and Theology at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, California, and served in campus ministries in California and here in Arizona for 27 years. He was pastor-director of the Catholic community at Stanford University and also at the All Saints Catholic Newman Center at Arizona State University. Father Nathan, good morning to you, and thank you for joining us on this show that I hope opens people's minds, not only in the realms of what they might suffer, people who've had great loss, and maybe tie this into a little conversation, because we've got a lot of time, to talk about the connections that science talks about with what you talk about from a spiritual nature. Good morning, Father. How are you this morning?
I'm great. For me, I'm in Houston today. I'm coming to you from my sister's guest room in Houston because one of my nieces just had twin boys in February, so I'm here for the weekend.
Congratulations. How beautiful. Well, tell us a little bit about your background. I read a very short, brief bio of you. Obviously, you're a Texan. You lived in Groves, Texas, near the Beaumont, Texas area. And as you mentioned, as we talked about, your dad's sisters also became nuns. So tell us, what's the passion for you to become a priest in the Catholic faith? I find this fascinating. I've asked this of others, and I have been a Catholic for the most part of my life, but honestly, I should maybe be a better listener to what you're going to talk about this morning with us.
Well, I grew up in a really practicing Catholic home, and I never had to recover from being Catholic or anything like that. I had great parents, and my mom was a terrific explainer of the faith, not just the religion, but the cosmology of it. You know, we were in first grade in Catholic school. We were being taught about how the universe came to be, why it came to be, our place in it. The idea that I would survive my death was ingrained from first grade, probably before that. And I was taught that I had a family on earth and a family in heaven, and that I was I was kind of this dual citizen of earth and heaven. That I would always be, that I was loved. So a great many things, and one of the things that my mom taught me to do was spiritual communication, how to talk to my other family. So that's really important. How I got my start it just seemed to me that life would be short. I'm surprised, 69 years old, and I'm surprised I've lived this long. I thought I would have a shorter life than this.
Wow,
but,
that's amazing.
But it seems like, whatever our duration of time here on the earth is, that it's brief. And I just wanted to do the most important thing I could think of doing. And in the end, for me, that ended up being priesthood, mostly because of the message that we survive our death, which is what Easter is all about.
Well, this is a beautiful story that we're about to hear. And I think many people, they may be sitting there wondering, and hopefully they're not driving and hit the brake on this. But I think in my heart, and I'm sure, your answer we will await, that there is a distinct connection between what science says and what we do believe in our religious faith. And for many years, being a scientist myself, I've been around so many people that are just simply on the atheistic side, and I'm not here to chastise them. That's their belief if they do. But what I'm trying to say, Father, is that so many now in the science community, if you talk, I interview so many scientists, they tell us that there is some sort of a spirituality to this whole universe. And I just wanted to read something, and I'm quoting from your own website here, if you don't mind me doing that. I believe we are eternal. I believe the Creator who made us loves us wildly beyond belief. Your mission, that is, or my mission as you speak, is to help people live in the present, feel loved, and dwell in joyful hope. And as a Catholic priest, I specialize in helping those who feel stuck, whether it is in this earthly life or in the afterlife, and experience freedom. That's a profound statement. And, again, this home flagship radio station, here WABC in New York City, I can't even imagine, I should say. That's the word I'll repeat. I cannot even imagine the horrors of all the families that suffered losses from the tragedies that happened on 9/11, and then multiply that to any experience where somebody loses someone in a horrific car accident, a shooting, a stabbing, all the horrible things in crime. So talk to us about the things that you do, and actually what I really should ask you is, how do people follow you? Because I see all across the internet, if people are tuning in right now and maybe have a bunch of questions about when we get into the details, how do they reach you? Because you have so many podcasts and videos on YouTube that talk about this whole connection between the afterlife, spirituality. How do we stay in touch with you? It's simple. You're already quoting from the website. The address of it is my name, Nathan, Nathan -Castle, Castle. So Nathan-Castle.com. And then once you're on there, when you go to the upper right-hand corner of it, there's the little icons, and one of them is for the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is named Father Nathan Castle, but you can go on the website and click the icon, and it'll take you right there. So I have a lot of archived classes and retreats and things on there. And then I also have my own podcast, which is The Joyful Friar, Friar. I'm a Dominican, St. Dominic, that was his nickname, the Joyful Friar, and it's the reason I joined this order, because I wanted to be joyful. I didn't want to be dour. There's too many, I experienced plenty of religious people with frowns, and I didn't want to be that. So yes. That's the way to follow me. Thank you. I'm a graduate of Paramus Catholic High School, for those listening out there that also had the experience, a very good experience. We had brothers of the Christian schools, and let me say this, they were very tough. Discipline was very well measured out to those that needed it, and counseling was available to others. Can you describe the difference, Father, between the Jesuits, which is the Society of Jesus, as I'm reading, founded in 1540 by Ignatius of Loyola, and, of course, the Dominican, those of the Dominican persuasion, as we would like to say. Tell us the differences, if there are any, before we get into this.
Well, we were about 300 years older than the Jesuits. We were founded in 1216 or 1206. The cloistered nuns, the Dominican nuns, were founded first, and then the friars, in 1216. One of the reasons I joined the order is I wanted to be well educated. I didn't want to just rush through a program that ordained me and put me to work. I wanted to make sure I was really well educated. The Jesuits make most of their guys get PhDs, and I just didn't want one. I wanted a more general education than what happens when you have to do a PhD. So I feel like they did a really good job of educating me, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, the folks out there listening. Oh, go ahead, Father. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Well, I'm sorry. One of the things I was just reflecting with my brother-in-law and one of my nephews that we're the world's oldest democracy. The Magna Carta was modeled after our articles, our Constitution, 810 years ago, something like that. So I appreciated that too, because I believe we all have a part to play, and I like being able to be a part of the conversation.
Father, during this extended interview here with you, and for good reason, I want to light up the phone lines, obviously, if people want to have, their questions answered or concerns. But one of the things I wanted to make clear, Father has asked me kindly, we're not going to talk about poltergeists or exorcisms because that's not necessarily his area of expertise, and I respect that, Father. We're not going to go down that path. So I just say that to the callers. If you do call, we want you to call. And we're actually looking for people out there that may never have called this particular radio station during this time of the late night, if you're in the West Coast or here in the early morning on this Saturday morning, with particular questions as we get into the details here. And also maybe in the second hour, I'd like to get your analysis of Pope Leo XIV. I find this fascinating, the first American-born pope, and some of the things that you see him interceding and working with the Catholic faith along the world. So that we can expect later on, if you don't mind doing some commentary on that. But let's get to the heart and soul of the conversation right here. And this, to me, is very fascinating because a long time ago, I've had interviews with folks from the Vatican Observatory. Many people may not know that the Vatican, as you probably know better, has a distinct interest in the astronomical world as we go about the sun. And we had a gentleman named Brother Guy Consolmagno on, and he was amazing. He's an astronomer. He's obviously, as I call him, just an incredible individual talking about spirituality and bringing that close to science and never having the two conflict. So let's talk about your books here, and I find this very, very fascinating as we discuss with you this series of 3 books here, and they're very interesting in my mind. The Afterlife, Interrupted Afterlife, Helping Stuck Souls Cross Over. Now, many people may be going, what the heck are you talking about? But talk to us about this, because I find it fascinating. And what does it really go back to, Father? It goes back to me studying science and also believing in Jesus Christ as our Savior, my Savior too. These intercession things I think find fascinating, and I hope the audience does too. So talk about the book, and the first one that you wrote, The Compulsion for It. Tell us why, and what does it contain, how to help people?
Well, I was ordained when I was 29 years old, and I was working as a campus minister, and I was at Arizona State for 12 years in charge of the campus ministry there. But in childhood, I was praying for what I was taught with the souls in purgatory. When I was a little kid and began to learn about dying and what happens next, it sounded like there were 3 possible destinations that were sort of like nation states in the sky, heaven, hell, and purgatory. And as a little 5 or 6 year old, it seemed to me that most people weren't perfect and most people weren't horrible, that the most populated one would probably be the one in the middle. Both of my aunts were Dominican first grade teachers. Most of my dad's sisters, his only 2 siblings, became nuns. And so between my mom teaching me about having a mother on earth and a mother in heaven, when I learned to make the sign of the cross, we cross ourselves over our heart. I had a great love for pirates when I was a little kid. And she said, well, you make it, what letter does that make when you make the sign of the cross? Well, it's an X. And she said, well, what's the X for? Well, in the pirate stories, it's where the treasure's buried. She said, that's exactly right. The treasure's inside you. So we cross ourselves, and then you just knock on your heart, and you say, hello, in there, I want to talk to you. And that's where God lives. So I wasn't praying to a God in the sky. I was praying to the God who lives inside me. Actually, I was doing both, because God is everywhere, and God is in the sky, and God is in my heart. So you can do both.
Well, you say it so well, Father, because I'm just repeating some of the things I wrote down after going through an analysis here, a deep dive into your work. And I quote, you say God is everywhere, which obviously we believe, but he's not the God of New Jersey or the God of New York or California. He's the God of everywhere. And you do the interpolation of bringing together that the Spanish word cielo means sky, of course, and that the blue of the sky meets the earth itself, so that the extension is what? Throughout the heavens, infinite. So God is everywhere. Well said by you.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, if you remember that we're on a ball, our feet are touching the ground, and the rest of it is hanging out in space. So we're already there. It's just a matter of breathing it in and taking it to heart. Well, anyway, when I learned, one of my aunts took me aside right before my first communion, and she said, "You must listen very carefully to me. God loves everybody and hears everyone's prayers, but the prayers of children go straight to God's heart. You won't be a child for very long, so don't waste your short childhood because you have a superpower. You must pray for everyone and everything you can think of." So I'm 69 years old, and I'm quoting her from when I was 7.
Well, you're doing a very good job of that because, I don't know. I haven't personally suffered. I don't really reveal much about my personal life here to the giant audience here, but why not? I mean, we're all human and we all make mistakes and we all have good and bad things in our lives. But the thing is, I've never personally experienced loss. I know many people that have. I don't really know what it's like. I mean, I've lost my parents. They're very serious and we love them in my heart. I love them. But the question I ask you before we go to a break here in a few minutes, what is it that we can tell people from your perspective about how to handle loss? I mean, it's a great big subject that would take 50 years to talk about, but from the book that you write, give us some inspiration on
let me try to describe a little bit about what happens in the book. When I was in my early 40s, I had this history of praying for people who had died, and then one night on a retreat, actually north of Phoenix up in Prescott, I was on a retreat, and I went to sleep on Friday night, and somewhere early Saturday morning, I had this dream of a man burning to death on the radiator of a car from the late 50s, the kind with fins and chrome.
And this is Ray, as you describe, Ray, right?
Yeah, he's the first story in book 1. And I knew that I was being contacted, that it wasn't just my psychobabble. I used to have to carry a pager if it was my turn to cover the hospital. If someone is in an emergency, Catholic is in an emergency in a hospital in the middle of the night, there's always a priest on duty, on call. And so I was used to having the pager, and this felt like that, like I was being paged without the pager. Somebody was needing me. And so I wrote it down, and then I got with a partner in the morning and said, could we pray on this at a break time? And I knew she was spiritually gifted. She'd been a prayer partner of mine. We went into prayer, and within a few minutes she said, "Oh my God, this guy really wants to talk to you. Is it okay if I allow him to?" And I knew she could bring people through. I call it the gift of prophecy. It's commonly called mediumship, but in the Catholic Church, that word is upsetting to people, and it's just not worth using it. I think it's the gift of prophecy, which is attested well in the Old and New Testaments in Judaism and Christianity. So anyway, I said, sure, we've protected ourselves in prayer with Michael the Archangel and Holy Mary, and go ahead. So he spoke, and that story is in book 1. I don't know if you said we're going to a break, so I won't go into it.
Well, we have about a minute, but no, I mean, I know this story is fascinating, but I just want to mention something before we go to that break. Congratulations to you, Father, that your 40th ordination anniversary celebration comes up June the 7th. And congratulations. I mean, that's a lifetime of service to Jesus and God, and I'm sure the people out there appreciate that. But that's amazing. We got about a minute, so if you want to encapsulate some of that, we can hold off on the rest of that story, of course, until you come back.
All right. Well, and people can read it if they're interested enough. But in any event, this man had died 40 years earlier, and we asked him, well, how can we help you? And he said, my wife. Mm-hmm. She's an old woman now. I died when I was 20. She's an old woman now. She's dying of cancer, and I want to greet her when she passes, but I can't the way I am. So we worked with him over a period of 3 weeks, about once a week, and helped him reason his way toward how he might get unstuck and get ready to greet her. And as it turned out, it worked just fine. He just had to shift some thinking and challenge some mistaken assumptions that he had. Once he was willing to do that, he was able to greet her. And he told us that he's since become an afterlife greeter for other people because he was grateful for learning how to do it.
More with Father Nathan Castle as we continue to explore the connection between science as what we know today in the quantum fields and what he's talking about the afterlife and things that he does to help individuals Your questions, ladies and gentlemen, comment are much appreciated here on this radio station. 1-800-848-9222. We'll be talking about, in his words, how to help people who suffer from grief, loss, and all the connectivity things from our very special guest, Father Nathan Castle. We'll be right back.
Finding a new job is stressful. But with Indeed, it doesn't have to be. Just fill out your Indeed profile with your skills, experience, and desired salary. The more you fill out, the better your matches will be. And hearing from hiring managers will be 2 times more likely. Relax. That's your Indeed profile sending opportunities your way. Indeed, the world can work better.
Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other toppings, and managing it as one big juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
McCrispy strips are now at McDonald's. I hope you're ready for the most dippable chicken in McDonald's history. Dip it in all the sauces. Dip it in that hot sauce in your bag. Dip it in your McFlurry. Your dip is your business. McCrispy strips at McDonald's.
At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can even finish the bachelor's degree you started in 22 months for $20,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by pace, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
Let's continue, Father, on this particular subject. I find it fascinating. You're talking about you yourself, and I don't know how to explain this. You can. You're the one who's experiencing this. The ability to have people who are what may be called stuck in between this transition to the afterlife. If you weren't finished with the story of Ray, just give us a summary of that. I think that was interesting.
Well, we asked him, as you would starting any new relationship, how can I help you? How can we help you? And he explained that he had died in a fire in 1960 in rural Georgia. I was only 4 at the time, but he and his wife had, his girlfriend, they were seniors in high school when they got pregnant. They got married and had the babies. The baby was about 2 years old when he died in a fire. He was wearing greasy clothes. He had an auto shop, and he doesn't even know how he caught fire, but he died in a fire. He had been taught that the reason that people die at all is because God takes them. So that was what he was taught. Yeah. So he was working with that, and he said, who the hell does he think he is taking me just when my life is getting good?
That's
so
incredible.
He arrived in the afterlife mad at God and mad at the universe. And so he created for himself the closest thing to nothing that he could. So he just hunkered down and kind of created this blank space. His guardian angel was in one corner of it, but he didn't know who that was, just some guy that sits over there and doesn't say anything, leaves me alone. But he said, I've been watching my wife for 40 years. She's an old woman now. She married again. She married up. She married her a lawyer and moved to South Carolina. They didn't have any more kids. He did a great job raising my son. I got no beef with that man, but my wife's dying of cancer, and I want to greet her when she comes, and I can't the way I am.
That's amazing.
He did a good job with it. He explained what his problem was. We said, okay, well, what have you been doing for the last 40 years? Nothing much. And I said, okay, let me see if
he even had the accent. I love it.
Well, I'm from Texas. I can put it on when I want to. He said, nothing much. I said, and so now cancer's got its own schedule. It's not going to wait on you. We're going to have to hurry, don't you think? He said, I suppose. I said, but you're probably not going to like it.
Yeah.
People don't really like being hurried. But if I hurry you too much, you just tell me to back off because you're in charge. And then we began to kind of peel away layers. You know, I said, I've known God all my life. And I don't know if I can say shit on your show. He said, what I said.
Well, I guess you just did.
Well, said his pastor had taught him that God takes people, and I said, well, I'm a pastor too, and I'm a Catholic priest. Oh, shoot. And I said, well, yeah, that's what you got here. But we're going to help you, and we did. But we had to. Yes. I said, don't you think you ought to get moving? You're going to have to figure out how to move around and not just stay in one spot. So we need to get somebody to come for you and take you for a walk. What about your mom? Well, she beat me when I said my prayers. I said, well, let's not take her.
That's sad. Yeah.
How about your dad? Well, he died in the war, Korea, and he said, I hardly knew him. And I said, well, did you two ever have a good time together? And he said, yeah, one time we went and looked at cars. I said, okay, well then.
Well, there's the connection, right? The car.
Yeah, and he loved cars, and he had his own auto repair shop. I said, well, if we asked God to send him to come to you, do you think you'd be okay? Would you be afraid? He said, I don't think so. And I said, well, let's tell him that he can only come close enough for you to see him, but no closer. You're in charge. So we said a prayer, and he said, oh, my God, look over there. And I said, I can't see what you're seeing. Well, it's my dad. And I said, well, do you think you're being tricked? No, it's my dad. I said, well, if you
you're like a navigator in this whole story, and I find that fascinating. But, Father Nathan, this is interesting. The callers, I'm sure we have a line of callers here. Let's say good morning to Christine in Dutchess County. If you're with us, good morning. You're on with Father Nathan Castle. Thank you for joining the Dr. Sky Experience. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing great. I have trouble sleeping, so I try and listen to interesting things at night, and I love the station, so I said, let's see what's going on tonight. This is fascinating to me, and I was raised Catholic, but then, like in the 80s, I got into like more New Age stuff, and I just love the whole idea of the beyond, and that it's not bad to think about these things and talk about these things. But as a Catholic, I always believed that this is bad stuff. Like, you don't go into this realm that Father Nathan is going into. Like, it's kind of like taboo. And so I just wonder, like, how, Father, did you get into this and feel comfortable enough to do this and to kind of bridge that gap? Or, like, is it frowned upon? Like, what do your peers think of this? And, like, they didn't kick you out, of the priesthood because you're doing this kind of...
No, it's very good, Christine. Stay with us, and I would like Father Nathan to respond. You bring up some very interesting points here. Father, this is fascinating. People, of course, in the late hours, whatever it is, late night radio, of course, brings out many, many different topics and many different callers. And in this case, Christine has some very interesting commentary with questions.
Well, thanks for calling, Christine. I just knew when this happened the first time that it was a calling, and I had been praying for people who had passed for my whole life. So it didn't strike me as me dabbling into something that I shouldn't. I was just following the Holy Spirit's prompting, and we're careful. I always pray to St. Michael the Archangel and to Mary, the Mother of Jesus, and St. Dominic, the founder of my order. I don't pick up hitchhikers on earth or anywhere else. I think everyone is well made because God made everyone well, but not everyone is well behaved and in good company. So I try to be careful. I don't seek out people. I only help those who find me. I think that matters.
It does.
Christine, are you still on the line? Or I don't understand.
I'm here.
She's here. No, I asked her father to stay on the line with us because we're having a conversation about this.
Okay, good. You asked, have I been sanctioned or anything, or is this approved? I took a vow of obedience to my religious superior, and we elect them. So over this first book came out now 70 years ago, and each of my provincials during that time has read what I've written before I published it and approved it. So I'm not doing anything that I've been forbidden to do. Does everyone like it? No. How do you get complete agreement on anything?
That's exactly right. And what we say, Father, and to all the loving folks who listen, of course, we're basically, here in this particular New York market, as we're all over the world here. But we always say this proudly. I'm a native New Yorker originally, too. How can you be originally? Of course, I was born there. I'm very proud of my New York heritage. We say 8.3 million people with what, Christine? 36 million opinions. And, of course, all those opinions are important. But, Christine, you're like myself. I mean, I was raised Catholic, and I thought that some of these concepts, and the Father, of course, Father Nathan is bringing up today, I would imagine in the early days, maybe that wouldn't be what, Christine, as well received as it is, at least for the most part today. We have bigger, open more minds. Wouldn't you agree, Christine, on these topics?
Yes, it appears so. And I'm glad about it because I've always had more of a view of spirituality it encompasses more than just what we're told, maybe, and that it's okay to explore, but also, like, you have to be careful, like the Father says, he protects himself because you could, I don't know if it's demons, but they say, like, you could invite demons in or you could attract some negative, energy or peoples, that have passed on or stuff like that. So, I don't know. I just think it's wonderful. I'm very glad that I listened tonight because I'm interested in all this quantum stuff. I don't understand it.
No, thank you. And listen, let me say this. As the host of this radio show, I certainly will never come across as the expert on this particular topic because really, truly, we all have these different subject matters coming to our, the forefront. Just like the Good Father and many people who study science, really, Christine, nobody has the answers. But what we'll do in the next hour, I hope you'll continue to listen, as everybody else is all over the world right now, to Talk Radio 77 WABC. With the Dr. Sky Experience, we'll get into more of what we think from the quantum side of science to try to interlace it with what the Good Father is saying here. But that's something for a future time. So, Christine, thank you for being part of our show. Hope you'll be a regular as we journey into these topics that maybe we don't always hear about, which we appreciate. Thank you, Christine.
Bye.
Yes, Father, I appreciate your time. We're going to go to the break in just a moment here, so we'll come back. We have more callers on the line, and I'm grateful, for your time, because I think this is a good opening act to talk with guests like yourself, because never, and I know you agree, we were talking offline, that it's really impossible to get all the questions and concerns on deep topics like this in just a short hour, because it goes very fast, and what we'll talk about when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, is more with Father Nathan Castle on the story of the afterlife and what he's doing to kind of intercede. He's kind of like a navigator to move people to the next level, and this is a fascinating story. We'll be right back here on the Dr. Sky Experience.
Hi, this is Hugh Downs. You're listening to Dr. Sky on aviation and space and life.
Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. A quote from the great Albert Einstein as we continue here at 47 minutes after the hour with your questions and comments at 1-800-848-9222. An extended hour, the next hour, of course, with our very special guest. We appreciate his time, Father Nathan Castle, author of many books on spirituality and ways, too, in the afterlife, how to move people forward. This particular book series we'll be talking about, and also about the intersection of quantum mechanics and our study in religious faith. Well, Father, let's go to the callers. We welcome John in Queens. Good morning, John. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Good morning, Dr. Sky. I think you chose a very good subject, and you're running a good show right now.
Thank you, sir.
My question here is that, it's a statement and a question. I have two friends that recently buried their mother. And when the mother had passed, it took for various reasons. It took about 6 days until the mother was buried, and she was dead. They had seen her several times before their burial, and as the burial was beginning, or as they were placing her into the ground, both of them began to feel something. They didn't really know what it was, but they started to suffocate. They felt something was wrong. But they continued the ceremony. Both of them felt very guilty afterwards, and to this day they've had breathing problems from that incident. And they don't know exactly what went wrong, but they both agree that something went wrong.
Father, I think this is interesting as we get into more of the emotional side. And John, please stay with us because I want the good father to speak about this.
Well, hi, John. I don't know. That would be the most honest answer. I don't know. But where I would begin is if they really have a sense that there's something out of place. As Catholics, the first thing we do for people who have passed is to have a mass said for them. Do you know how to do that?
John, are you with us?
No. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, John.
Yes.
Yeah,
John, do you know how to have a mass said for someone?
I mean, I don't know, but I'm sure I could ask my priest, and he'll know.
Yeah, it's a standard thing that's done, through a parish office. Every time one of us says mass, it's intended for a particular person or thing, like dedication.
Right.
When you're at a Catholic mass, very often at the prayers of the faithful, there'll be a something like, "Today this mass is being offered for the soul of Mary Smith." Let's praise the Lord. So that's always the default. The very first thing to do for the person is to have a mass said for them. That's the first thing that I would do.
Okay,
we appreciate that. John, do you have a follow-up or another comment that you'd like to make or question? We have a little time.
Well, I mean, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they went through with this, but what are the channels could they be looking at or down or towards?
Well, you could send them my way through my website. They could contact me, and I could talk with them individually and see if I could help them specifically.
Please give that info out again, Father. Give out your information.
Yeah, and my website, John, is nathan-castle.com. When you go to it, there's a contact button like websites have. And
Nathan-council.com?
Nathan-castle.com.
Council, C-O-U-N-C-I-L.
No, Nathan, my last name is Castle, C-A-S-T-L-E, like a king or a queen lives in.
Yes, there you go.
Okay, got it.
Well, John, good morning. I thank you so much for being with us, and I hope you'll continue to be part of our journey as we talk about these mysterious and yet factual things and talk about these wonderful subject matters. And again, I'm sorry, I wanted to ask Tony, who do we have on the line? I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Let's say good morning to Frederick in Brooklyn. You're on with Father Nathan Castle. I call him Doctor, and obviously he's giving us this good information. Like a
giving me an honorary doctorate. Huh?
Well, there you go. He's Doctor Father Nathan Castle.
Good morrow, Dr. Castle, radio host. My concern is more spatial. I am curious to know what is the constituent difference between a planet and a star.
Oh, okay. Well, this is more of here we go from the science side to answer you very quickly. A star is a fusion ball that creates energy. A planet is an object that shines by light that's reflected, so it doesn't have it could have a heated core, but it doesn't have a fusion core. So simply, stars are, powered by fusion. They go on for billions of years. And when they die out, they explode, and we get what's classically called a supernova. But planets just shine by light, the remnants of stars that have exploded. So in the solar system, in the universe, we know the planets we have. But out in the galaxy, they're saying, wow, there could be over 1 billion of these exoplanets around other stars. Isn't that mind-boggling, don't you think?
Yes. But it sounds like it's more in-depth thing. I would have to directly just make further research about it because that's really as you state, sound mind-boggling to.
Yes. The universe is magical. The universe is just magical. And we appreciate your call because we got so much here in the pipeline. But ladies and gentlemen, we're continuing hour number 2 with our very special guest, Dr. Father Nathan Castle, as we talk to him about some things that necessarily most of us may not hear about moving people, as he explains, individual souls through this particular place that we called maybe purgatory. I don't know where that is. It's not located maybe in my downtown or your downtown, but we don't even know. But the concept of how science, religion, and all this energy moves together in one big phase. Father, this is fascinating information that you're giving us here. So talk a little bit more about your book, the series, Interrupted, this interrupted journey, as I call it, Interrupted the Afterlife. Talk a little bit more about this, because people out there may still have tons of questions, and I want to zoom in on the area of grief, loss. I mean, so many people, God bless. I haven't experienced it yet in full force, but I don't know how I'd handle it, and I don't know how people do. So tell us a little bit more.
Well, after that first experience with Ray all those years ago, maybe 28 years ago, people started, more of these dreams kept coming at the rate of about once a week. So I got used to the phenomenon, and so I began keeping a journal on the nightstand so I didn't have to run around the house looking for something to write on, because the dream can disappear pretty quickly. So as soon as I would have one of these contact dreams, the thing that makes them so different from my regular psychobabble is they're usually violent. They're people that died in a traumatic, violent way.
That's so horrible. Yeah.
Well, it is, except that everybody survives their death, however it occurs.
Yes, and again, I have a special appeal to all those that lost loved ones on 9/11, not just at the New York City location, but all throughout that horrific day, and everyone who's lost someone. I mean, I can't imagine, Father, how anybody can even cope with the grief of that day of just 9/11 to talking about that. Were you involved in spiritually guiding people from those experiences from 9/11? I haven't
written about them, and I only go into detail with stories in public if I've gone back and asked the person's permission. After they crossed, we go back a second time and ask them if it's okay to tell their story in a book or on a podcast. But I can do that carefully. There's been a couple. There was one person who jumped to their death, and what he said was, the choice that I had was to breathe air that was on fire or air that wasn't on fire.
Horrible.
And it's just that the air that was not on fire was out the window. And he said he didn't decide to jump. He decided to breathe. That's the way he put it. And
amazing.
He said, I could fall, but I couldn't land. In his imagination, he wouldn't let himself land. You can imagine that. And
I don't know. It's hard it's hard to concept. It's hard for me as a mortal to understand these concepts. But even more perplexing, I'm sure, to everyone listening out there, is the whole concept. The whole subject. Of the intercession of this whole quantum. The whole quantum universe into things that we believe. I've said many times on radio shows, Doctor, that the passage. Let's say when I had as an instructor Dr. Tombaugh, who discovered Pluto back when he was alive. And I used to say in his memorial, we would say, Dr. Tombaugh passed on to the infinite. I like to refer to that. I don't think anybody would split those words. But what we'll do in the next hour, we're going to get into a conversation with you and the listeners at 1-800-848-9222 in a little bit more details, not only from the Father's perspective, from the, his perspective, from the religious perspective, but also talk about some of these different theories. And then hopefully, as we continue in hour number 2, to save time, to get your analysis of Pope Leo XIV. It seems like the Pope, Father, just came upon us really quickly, didn't he? It was like I was expecting a longer time period, but that happened relatively fast in papal ordination terms. Yes.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, after the break, I'd like to finish that story that I was just...
Oh, okay. No, we certainly don't want to cut you short. We just want to make sure we get a chance to have all the callers that come in here, because it's a special time, ladies and gentlemen, and we're doing this to expand not only our horizons with guests, but to give everybody out there an opportunity, which they may not have, because I get a lot of emails, and those emails are simply at drsky@wabcradio.com, and those emails simply say, we'd love to have more time with individual guests, because we tried and we're patient to hang on the line. So we're trying to go ahead and do that, and we do appreciate it. So, Father, we'll be back after this break as we move to the top of the hour here, talking all about these things that go on in the spiritual world and in the quantum world. And one of the things that the good Father has said in his book, when he talks about another one of the experiences he's had with contactees, people contacting him, he says this, and I say it very simply, and he'll say it better: don't let the worst thing that happened to you define you. Very well said, Father. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Dr. Sky Experience. We're here on Talk Radio 77 WABC. Continue to call at 1-800-848-9222 as we move into your late Friday evening, wherever you are, or early Saturday morning. We welcome you to this unique radio platform.
This episode is brought to you by PetSmart. Stop by for Yappy Hour with your pet at PetSmart. Save $5 on walk-in grooming services like nail trims, ear cleaning, brushing, and more. No appointment needed every weekday from 2 to 6 p.m. And while you're there, Yappy Hour includes exclusive in-store deals like 25% off pet toys. Visit services.petsmart.com/grooming to learn more.
Acura's all-new ADX, a compact SUV that isn't just built for one thing. It's precision-crafted for everything. To escape the grind with available all-wheel drive. To go with your flow with available Google built-in.
Hey Google, turn it up.
Okay, turning up the volume. And crafted to be heard with an available Bang & Olufsen premium sound system. The all-new Acura ADX, crafted to match your energy. Acura, precision-crafted performance.
Take your vibes on go.
Google is a trademark of Google LLC.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. The message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Always look to the sky. The Dr. Sky Experience is on the air. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
I'm Steve Cates, Dr. Sky, your night bird of the airwaves. Soaring high over this nation and around the world as we bring you the best information possible from the realms of astronomy, space, aviation, weather, technology, and celebrity guests in the mix. Let's have a conversation. We, of course, talk about 4 different types of conversation: debate, dialogue, discourse, and diatribe. We prefer dialogue. Let's share ideas. Let's talk with each other and not at each other. That, of course, is something that we want to do here and set the standards on the Dr. Sky Experience. I want to thank Tony, our helmsman, steering this broadcast powerhouse out to the realms of the cosmos. We are here on 77 WABC. If you'd like to get in touch with us, we welcome your calls, no matter where you are. As we're told, we have 173 countries that listen, all 50 states, and who knows, maybe way out into the cosmos. The contact number, 1-800-848-9222. Folks, as we continue our second hour with Father Nathan Gassel, talking about the spirituality side that he brings to the table, for those that have grief, suffering, pain, loss, his books, The Afterlife, 1, 2, and 3, and another book that we'll talk about during this particular interview, and Toto 2, The Wizard of Oz. That's a spiritual adventure. But first, I wanted to bring in the scientific side of this, Father, if we can. And I'm just reading this so people don't think I know this verbatim. The terms consciousness, the terms reality, and this particular subject matter, we talk about consciousness, reality, and something else. So what is consciousness? And I read this and I say, consciousness is the state of being aware of oneself and obviously one's surroundings. It's a subjective experience of being alive, encompassing thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions. But now go to the thing of reality, the term. It's a philosophical concept. It refers to the state of things as they actually exist, independent of our subjective perceptions or interpretations. It encompasses the physical world, including objects, events, and phenomena we experience through our senses. And then, to everybody listening, this one, the most phenomenal of all from the quantum world, something called superposition. In simple terms, superposition, means a particle can exist in multiple states at the same time and measured. Imagine a coin spinning in the air. It's neither heads nor tails until it lands. Similarly, a quantum particle can be in a mix of multiple states as either a particle or a wave. And hopefully people will, maybe one day we'll get a real answer to this. Something that maybe lends to what the good Father's talking about, some concept called quantum entanglement, which is the mastery of the universe, is maybe where we do go toward the afterlife. Father, let's continue. You have another experience from your book that you'd like to share with us, or a continuation of the story. Please continue.
Well, just to wrap that story, the fellow that was falling, he wasn't falling for years and years because he wasn't experiencing time that way. But he wouldn't land. Of course he did, but he, in his imagination, in his consciousness, he didn't. But his guardian angel was with him and just finally said to him, all we do is fall. Could we possibly go up instead of down? Would you just get on my back and let me take you up for a little bit? And he agreed to that, and he said, now do you see that you have decisions? You don't have to do only one thing. You can do more than one thing. And that was all it took to get him unstuck. He just needed to stop continuing to do one thing over and over again and realize that he could choose another way to do things. And then he was able to go on to happier times and places. One of the things that your audience might like to hear about is how people adjust to the kind of body they have after they leave here. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, tell us. That's interesting.
Well, even for people that didn't believe there was an afterlife, find that they're in it. And they can't deny the fact that I know that I'm here because I'm aware of it. And then they can be aware of their some sort of embodiedness, and then they can be taught that they can shift it. They can go to being a younger version of themselves if they want to, or the age at which they died. They can learn that it's malleable, and it's up to them to present the way they want to.
Yeah,
I've gotten used to that. The woman that you didn't quote the person, but the quote you did just before the break. Don't let the worst thing that happens to you define you.
Yes, exactly.
That was from a woman named Sylvia, who was about 28, when her husband and daughter, 2-year-old daughter, were killed in an automobile accident. They just left the house and she never saw them again. And she showed me in a dream that she was getting up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and hearing the house creak. It had a lonely feel, and I was listening to the song on a turntable of Unforgettable, Natalie Cole.
Beautiful that song, yes.
It is, yeah, but it's haunting. She wished that she could forget her husband and daughter, but why would you want to? She just felt she was stuck in a loop of wishing life could be different, and it wouldn't change. So she decided at the time of her husband and daughter's death that she was now the icon of sadness, and that no one would want to be near her because she would remind them of sadness. So at 28, she kind of shut down. She wouldn't go out after work. She stayed home and watched TV. And eventually she got, well, it was a choice of her own. She decided for everybody that might want to know her that they wouldn't want to.
What a shame. And, wow. But who knows? I mean, they're going through this. Not myself, or maybe not some people listening, but let's go more on to the side of the people listening right now. I'm sure, folks, you have experiences that maybe you're perplexed about from loved ones or people that, of course, that are on their way to the afterlife. And you may have questions or comments of our very special guest, Father Nathan Castle, 1-800-848-9222, as we move through time and space here. You know, I was just looking at something, Father, here. There's this obvious polymath. And what's a polymath? Somebody, I guess, that does almost like a genius that doesn't have traditional education. His name was Walter Russell. And he said something I find quite interesting here. He claims and says, and I say, quote, matter is light patterns shaped by consciousness. I think, oh my gosh, now that gets really interesting because obviously we're all energy. And I know you were referring to the laws of thermodynamics, and I was watching some of the podcasts that you had. I did, look at them intently. And you were talking about the whole concept of the first law of thermodynamics, which simply is what? Energy can be transformed from one form to another, but it cannot be created or destroyed. So doesn't that have a spirituality to it? Obviously it does. At least to me it does.
Absolutely. It absolutely does.
That's amazing.
You're always going to be you. You might not be in the same form, but you'll always be you.
That's interesting. Well, talk to us more, because there's many times that we miss things when we do these interviews, and we don't have everything on script here. But what I'm talking about now is this other book that you have. This is kind of very interesting to me. It's N Toto 2, The Wizard of Oz as a Spiritual Adventure. Let's go down that path with your okay and describe the connection to spirituality through your interpretation of The Wizard of Oz and the characters in that. Please continue.
Well, maybe some of your audience is familiar with Joseph Campbell and his work.
Not personally, but maybe they are, yes.
Well, he lived for most of the 20th century, and he was fascinated by origin stories like the ones that we have in our Bible, 7 Days of Creation and the Adam and Eve stories. He went all over the world looking for stories about how we got here and stories that describe a life well lived in a particular culture, like the Odyssey, that kind of thing. And he by the late in his life or well into his career, he felt that all of these stories follow a pattern that he calls the monomyth. One great big circular story of starting somewhere, crossing the threshold, encountering adversaries and allies, having some kind of challenge, rising to the challenge, defeating the foe, whatever, and then realizing that you don't really belong here, you need to go home. It's been nice, but I need to go back to the place I came from. And he called it greening, that you go back to the place and you bless it because of the experiences that you've had. You bring something back to it that it didn't have before. And I just thought the story of Dorothy is one of those monomythic stories.
Yes.
You start in one place, and in the 1938 movie, it's black and white, color, black and white. You end up back where you began, but the lady that wanted to kill your dog still lives down the street. The house has been hit by a tornado, but who cares because I'm home.
Wow. What a way to explain it. There you go. Wow. So like Dorothy wants to go back to Kansas. The Scarecrow wants a brain. The Tin Man wants a heart, and the Lion wants courage. So in this book, I mean, and Toto too, describe the details because, well, I mean, obviously they should get the book, but the correlation that you're bringing here to those actors and people who play participation in that movie, how does that relate to the book that you have?
I believe there's a false god character in it, Oz. He lives in a temple city. He's up the front of a kind of sort of Gothic cathedral-like building. That's not a place of encounter. It's a place of oppression. He insults them when they get there. And then it turns the whole thing into a transaction. I'll do this for you if you do this for me, and you got to satisfy me first before I take care of you. Bring me that broomstick. But even a child can tell that all the characters who think they don't have something actually do. It's the Scarecrow who doesn't have a brain, who says, well, I'm not smart about doing things, but maybe if you twist the nail, I'll slip off. The Tin Man who doesn't have a heart, doesn't think he has any emotional life, but you got to keep that oil can nearby because he rests when he cries, and he's very quick to tears. So you can see that these characters really do have what they think they don't have. It just needs to grow. They just need some experience, and they need to work together. They're not all in on individual journeys. They after they encounter the Tin Man, the witch shows up again and threatens them that they better get away from her because she's mad at them, at Dorothy. And they just say, well, Dorothy, now we don't even care if we get what we need. We're going to help you get what you need. So there begins to be this overarching collaboration between people that are all flawed somehow. I think that's the church. I've lived in the church my whole life, and it's flawed. Oh my God,
coming up on your 40th anniversary, as we mentioned before in the hour number one, congratulations. But this gets a little deep.
And I believe that let me finish this. Toto is the Christ.
There you go. That's what I wanted to say.
He's the one who's been with you all along.
That's
he
right.
promised to be, I am with you, and he's in every scene practically.
So
and
do
he's
you?
just nothing but love.
Right. Do you believe in dog? Right. And Toto, too. There you go. The representation
and you
and
and I
manifestation.
are both loved by dogs.
That's amazing. Yes, we love our little gal, and she's just a beauty. We mentioned her in the top of the first hour. Happy birthday to little Aurora, a beautiful Bichon Maltese, and she just celebrated her 3rd birthday. And I tell you, Father, I look in that dog's face, and I tell you, I know it knows what I'm thinking. And when I talk and my lady friend talks, you know, they're so amazing. I mean, who could not love animals, right? God bless them.
Well, mine it actually belongs to my best friend, but I get to share him, and he's on my podcast a lot. He's 7.5 pound poodle, and his name is Toto.
Toto, there you go, of course.
Yeah, which I believe.
1-800-848-9222. Still time to get in on the conversation, but what are we talking about here? So many things with our very special guest, Father Nathan Castle. Of course, you can check him out on the internet. Tell us again how people can get in touch with you, because I think your podcasts are very, how about this? They're very enlightening, to say the least, but they're very helpful. So in other words, even if you're driving, you know, you can put the little sound speaker there, you Bluetooth it, and you can listen. And there's no excuse not to, because if you can't sit through 45 minutes or an hour, tell us how people can get in touch with you again.
Yeah, the podcast is called The Joyful Friar, Friar. And the website is nathan-castle.com.
Very well. We appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit more about what we mentioned before, about the whole concept of consciousness and reality and all the things in the quantum world, this whole new thing called superposition, which would have to go to a classroom, with a big board to explain this in the mathematical side, but keeping it user-friendly, as we want to do here on this radio show during the early morning hours. What I wanted to find out from you is, this whole concept of reality and such, the deeper subject matter, and I'm studying this, I'm not the scholar of it, is the subject entitled what, Father? Ontology. Is a philosophical study of being. Now this gets very, very deep, but interlace some of the things from your faith that talk a little bit about what we're talking about this morning, about this whole subject of being. I mean, nobody really understands consciousness or reality, so talk to us about ontology. This is fascinating.
Well, I was taught, again, I was being catechized when I was 6 to make First Communion at 7, because the church thinks of that as the age of reason, and I was being taught that I'm a being that is both permanent and temporary in different ways at the same time. That I came from God. I'm made of the stuff of God. I'm full of God is love, and I'm full of God's love. I'm going to be in this body for an undetermined amount of time, or it's beyond my ability to know. But after that, will be me outside of this body, and that's always been my understanding, and I still believe so.
Beautiful story. Let's talk to Ray in Brooklyn. Good morning, Ray. You're on with Father Nathan Castle. How are you this morning, and thank you for joining us.
Oh, good evening, guys. That's so great. Thank you for the screener, and Dr. Sky, it's a pleasure. I was going to ask Father Nathan, when we talk about Toto and the dog, even if it's G-O-D, how do you deal with ego? I was hoping that you guys could touch on, like, mental illness. I mean, some people can be absolutely beautiful, Dr. Sky and Father Nathan, but how could they just switch off to, like, what is the breakaway? What happens when you lose your spiritual contact with God, and all of a sudden the ego is worse than a dog, if you know what I mean? I mean, you guys are hitting on some great stuff. I'm 67. I've been at it for like over 45 years of spiritual journeys, and I respect Dr. Nathan's remarks, but I just wanted to know, like, I have a experience going down tonight, and I was wondering if you could shed some light on that. What happens to a person in their mid-40s who, like, lost contact with true spirituality, and what is what is the real definition of God for them? If
Ray, you asked some good questions. Let the good Father explain. And believe me, Ray, I appreciate you. Stay on the line with us. Father, this is fascinating, this part of the conversation.
Well, tell me, caller, what was your name again?
It's Ray. Ray.
Ray. Thank you, Ray. I think of the ego as I don't know, kind of the shallowest part of me. That's the way I think of it. When I feel like I'm being most selfish or most worried over outcomes and things like that, that's the way I think of ego on a practical level. And I know that I'm larger than that. I know that I'm an eternal being, and the ego always wants to be concerned with temporary things. That's one of the ways I think of it. But one of the ways that I think about God is that God is everywhere and God is love, and I'm always walking around inside of love. God for me is not somebody outside that I talk to, like I'm, like on a radio show, a call-in show. We're not in the same place. Well, God is always in the place where we are.
Yes.
And we're always walking around in God. We're swimming in God, and God is love.
Ray, your comment back as we move along here. Appreciate your questions. It's very intuitive. And,
I just heard him. I heard him say not as loved, but I really, really appreciate his elaboration on ego, because I did a lot of research on that, from Freud to everybody. And it's a small word, but it has an incredibly dominance. And when you avoid like God, as opposed to the 3-letter word, when your ego is just taking over your personality, it's just so shallow. I mean, how can we break through to people to reach God and the beauty of spirituality and keeping everybody in line with your love, instead of causing such static and having other people like feel fearful or think, oh, you need to be hospitalized. Like your ego is not only your ego, but they usually like classify you as, what society's like. They're going to put you away. They're going to lock you up because you're not functioning as maybe the masses. Maybe the masses are more important than just an individual who's got this radical view and thinks that they're more important than God. Because I don't like ego, guys.
Ray, you hit it on the head, my friend, really. I mean, I enjoy your call. We're not rating all the callers. Everybody's important with their questions and comments. But you really hit a nerve here, which is a good one, and I appreciate that. We're running out of time, Ray. I hope you'll call again, but I want the good Father to respond back in this final commentary over your questions and comments. Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it.
Well, I think all of us can, he used the word shallow. One of the critical things for me is starting the day with some sort of spiritual practice, some meditation or quietude of some kind, because we can just wake up into an egoic task list. And I have to do, and the ego always is using the word I. I need to do this, that, and the other, or I think, or I feel. And part of sitting still in meditation or contemplation, you begin to feel a sense that I'm not the center of everything. There's a lot going on around me, and I don't have to be the master of all of it.
Well, you're absolutely right. And, Father, this is interesting. I'm sure Ray's still listening, and many, many others around the world, that this whole concept of social media, good, bad, and ugly. But I know so many people, they have thousands and thousands of so-called friends on social media. But let's hope they don't need to find the few that really care when times are bad. Who'll drive you to the hospital if you need it, if you had somebody that you wanted to or tried to depend on. The whole point is, to me, in many cases, it builds a false sense of ego. And I think that's the understatement of the whole show, that, it's great to have social media, but so many people think they're so powerful that their world image is bigger than life, and it really isn't, in my opinion. What say you?
Well, yeah, and all this social media stuff is only, 20 years old, maybe?
Yeah, if that.
A lot of it, we don't really know what the long-term effects of all this stuff is, but sure, it's important to have real experiences and not just virtual ones. I live on the campus of the University of Arizona, and you remember, did you play license plate game when you were a kid on a car trip?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That was the most fun thing we could do because we didn't have a lot of money for other games.
Trying to spot, we used to count how many Volkswagen Beetles we could find on the road.
Kind of cool.
Now, when I go outside my house on the campus of the University of Arizona, I try to see if I can find a student who's walking down the street not looking at their phone.
Amazing.
That's
incredible. Yeah.
And
in weeks to come, Father, in weeks to come, I wanted to mention we have some guests talking about something called technocracy and the dangers that we see, not just myself, to be the humble host, but the great guests that will talk about these subjects to give people a different perspective on what may be coming down the road. Not to be negative, just to give people information so they can digest it, use it, or repel it in each way that they might want to do that. But, Father, we're almost at the bottom of the hour, the hard break, as they call it in the media and radio. But when we come back, I want to ask you some questions, and we have Alexi in Queens coming up. We have other callers coming up. We will do our very best to get to you in our extended version here. But what I want to talk about later, and this is something we'll have to do later on as we come back, to talk about guardian angels and the spirit that you talk about with this. And then maybe the question, and then maybe the question I would ask is, what about people of different faiths who not necessarily, like Ray may have talked about, what if they weren't in line step, hook, line, and step with our faith that we talk about here in the Christian world? What may happen to them? These and other questions from you, ladies and gentlemen, at 1-800-848-9222. As we come back from this amazing journey, as we talk about through time and space, the subject matters that we really don't understand. What is consciousness? What is reality? And as the good Father is talking about, helping those that might get stuck, moving to the afterlife. We'll be right back.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
Shopping is hard, right? But I found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And he sends just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what works and send back the rest. It's so easy. Make style easy. Get started today at StitchFix.com/Spotify. That's StitchFix.com/Spotify.
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom, The Dark Ages. Available now on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC.
Rated M for mature.
This is the Dr. Sky Experience. Always look to the sky. 77 WABC.
Hi, this is Shirley McLean. I am having a wonderful time talking to Dr. Sky. Since I've spent a lot of my time looking up, I love to discuss what is underneath. And always remember to keep your eyes to the sky.
And at 32 minutes after the hour, we appreciate the great Shirley McLean. We've had many contacts with her and many interviews. What a great performer on stage and film. 32 minutes after the hour, as I mentioned before, you're listening to the Dr. Sky Experience. Our very special guest of these 2 hours, as we move to a 2-hour format in some particular cases, is Dr. Father Nathan Castle, a Dominican priest. He is talking with us about his books, about, in so many simple words, how not to get stuck as you're moving toward the afterlife and the whole concept of the afterlife. Father, let's continue with the callers. We have, I believe, Alexi in Queens. Good morning, Alexi. You've been patient. How are you this morning?
Yes, good morning, Dr. Sky, and good morning to your guests. Listen,
I've been thinking, as I've been listening to your show, that there's something peculiar here.
Okay.
The thing is, the organized religion, all over the world you have it. You have Buddhism, Judaism, Catholicism. Basically, this is a mass effort to intimidate the human race into certain beliefs by force or by pressure or by wars or whatever. Very little good outside of perhaps the miracle of Jesus Christ, of the Messiah. That's about it. But the rest of it is a nightmare. It's a nightmare of unacceptable stories and phenomenon. But my point is this. My point is simply this.
Go ahead, sir.
What is important is that, look, you have but one life, practically speaking. You have but one life. We don't know where we came from, and we have no idea where we are going. We spend our time worrying about, the afterlife, heaven. Am I going to have 72 virgins, or am I going to have gold treasures, or what are we going to have? Let us concentrate. It is important to concentrate more on, how would you put it, enjoying the world, the existence that we have, and stop worrying about all these phenomenon, all these viewpoints of people who, I mean, look, you as an astronomer, you are an astrophysicist, no?
Well, yes, you're right.
You have studied history of subject. You know what the church did. Yeah. You know what the organized religions did to people like Giordano Bruno, Galileo.
Oh, I understand. I mean, and let me say this, not to sound defensive. I respect your call because let me say this, there's great mysteries out there. And some of the things that I say, very simply, and I'm going to turn this over to Father because that's the reason we have him here, to talk about that interpretation from questions like this. But Alexei, I'll stop talking, but I just say this way, and I think you'd nod your head or you'd agree in a vocal sense. Why just don't we live by the golden rule? Wouldn't that be great, Alexei? That would be the best way to live in my mind. But let the good Father respond, because I knew obviously we'll get to some of the points that I think here may be a little bit controversial. Father, your response to Alexei.
Well, Alexei, I believe that the universe is created, that it didn't create itself, that a creator created it. I believe the creator created it out of love, that I believe you and I are loved, and the best way to live a human life is to receive love, magnify it, and give it away. I believe I can do that every minute of every day if I just stay focused. Receive love, magnify love, give it away. I do that within an organized religion, but you don't have to be in an organized religion to receive love, magnify it, and give it away.
Alexei, briefly your response as we move through other callers. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, he speaks of creation, the creation of the universe and all this. Look, we don't think outside the box. We are basically egotists, even narcissists, and we say, it must have been created. I create a dinner, I create a party, I create a new idea. No. I think what he needs to do is maybe go to steady state theory and consider the fact that we are mortal. Our mortality dictates our perception of ideas and views. The universe was not created. It always was. We are the ones who are finite.
Well, Alexei, one last comment that I'll give you from the astronomical world, and I just want to clarify this for people that may not know this, what you were referring to before about how the church looked at the universe. And for so long, the good Father knows this, we were taught that the earth is the center, the geocentric theory of the universe, that everything went around the earth. Well, you're right. Look at the trials and tribulations that Copernicus had and Galileo, a whole nother story. But again, all I say, and I say it with, being proud to say it, I just wish everything could be run by the golden rule, because then maybe we could all try to get along together, don't you think, Alexei? But thank you for calling. We're short on time, and we have so many subjects to talk with the good Father here, but I appreciate you, Alexei. I hope you'll continue to call us on the Dr. Sky Experience. Father, these are some of the things I was really concerned about. You describe guardian angels. This is fascinating because we see that little picture that's hanging over many children's bedrooms at night, and I remember it. My parents had one in our little bedroom. Brush your teeth, wash your face, and say your prayers. and you looked up at that little picture of what? The guardian angel with the children on the broken wood bridge. Guardian angels, tell us a little.
Well, I think that I absolutely love my guardian. Everybody has a guardian. We all arrive with one. Sometimes they're called light beings or spirit guides or whatever, but
it's like a personal secret service, right? Like a personal secret service agent. There you go.
Absolutely, and they know so much about you because they've been with you since the womb. They would never break your confidence, but they can try to steer your behavior if you're receptive to the way that they can prompt. That the relationship can be developed if you ask for it to be developed and you spend a little time on it. But I just think they're just a tremendous resource, and they stay with us. They know that we're mortal. They can't, even the ones people that die in tragic ways. You might think, well, what kind of guardian did they have that let them die in a car crash? So the guardian knows that you're mortal from the moment that they were assigned to you. You're going to die of something, but they stay with you even if it's something that was tragic. They stay with you and help you move from this life onto the next one.
Yes. No, that's a beautiful. Let me say this. I mean, many people may disagree with this, like and believe what you want out there, but, I believe that there is some really serious spirituality out there. And it's interesting, my other question to you in a short order here, because again, time rules the roost here. What about those folks that are not of the Catholic or Christian faith? How do they move to those points? And let's say you had totally a person who's not just an agnostic, but a total atheist. Are they, in your opinion, from your religious background, forbidden to enter these sacred places that we call heaven? Or as we review it, tell us. That's an interesting
Certainly not. In I think my second book, there's a small town sheriff who went on a call to his sister's house only to learn that she had been shot and killed in a home invasion. She saw the people running out. They shot each other. The sheriff died, and one of the people who killed his sister died. It was just horrible.
How sad. Yeah, it's horrible.
But he said, I'm not a religious man, but since I got here, since I left, I've been so angry. My anger is so hot. And he said it's kind of like blood pressure. They won't let. I want to be able to move from here, but they said you can't until we get your anger down. We're not going to let you go to that man, me, and get all angry inside him. You have to promise us. But when we did get to talk, he said, well, there has to be. I'm not a religious person, and I don't really want to talk about religion. But I'm in this space, and I know that it's temporary, and I'm supposed to move to something better. He said there must be a side door for people like me. I said, you're absolutely right, buddy. there is a side door for people like.
That's an interesting way to describe it. A side door or a hatch to get in.
That's right, what he said. He said I was a public servant. I dealt with the entire public, and the public is lots of different kinds of people. And and whatever this all is, there must be a place for people like me. There must be a side door. So we helped him.
Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah, these are amazing stories. I mean, I've always wondered about that. I mean, everybody out there, I respect their faiths. I mean, I'm certainly not here to...
Hello?
Wars in the world are over religion, and yet, again, why can't we all simply get along? But that's an interesting path. I mean, is there any religion, if that's one area that you've studied other than the Catholic faith, that really doesn't believe in a higher plane like that of heaven? Is there such a religion that believes that? Or is that just the religion of the atheists? They don't believe it.
Well, I don't know of one. I mean, I've had comparative religion classes. I believe most everybody has some idea of some higher plane or maybe even just a deeper understanding or appreciation of the goodness of what we're already doing, that this life isn't just something to be passed through on the way to something better, that the earth is full of the goodness of the Lord is one of the ways that the Psalms talk about it.
It's interesting. And you told me, or everybody who watched or will watch the podcast, there was one podcast I watched in which you said that the Pope, a specific Pope, was asked if such a place like hell exists, and what did he say? I mean, he had an interesting comment back about it.
That was Pope Francis. It's only in the last 6 months or so. Yeah, someone asked Pope Francis if he believed in hell, and his answer was, if there is one, I hope there's no one in it. That's all he said.
Wow, it's an interesting way to answer that. You know, after the break, we're coming up here on just a moment. I just want to remind you, Father, I'd like to get into a brief discussion of your views of Pope Leo XIV. What I thought was incredible. I haven't followed these papal, changes that have happened since Pope Francis's death, obviously. It seemed to me that it happened very quickly that the conclave had selected a new pope, obviously Pope Leo XIV, but I wondered if that's something that is a shorter version, some little bit of information if you have about him. And then equally important, 1-800-848-9222. We'll try to get in as many callers. I'll go to this last break of this 2-hour program. Don't forget, folks, tomorrow, again, Saturday midnight Eastern Time to 2 a.m. Sunday, the continuation of the Dr. Sky Experience. 2 hours with, hey, how about this? If you always wondered about outer space, I'm talking with an individual who spent much of his life in the United States Navy. We support and salute their service and all the branches of the service, talking about what it's like to be undersea for over 80 to 100 days on all different classifications of submarines. You don't want to miss it. It's like going back into your favorite show, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Dionne Warwick, and what the world needs now is love, sweet love. And you're listening to the Dr. Sky Show.
47 minutes after the hour. Thank you, the lovely Dionne Warwick, a good friend of ours. And she says it so well. What the world needs now is love, sweet love, as we move toward 47 minutes after the hour. Let's go to the callers. They've been very patient here. Let's say good morning to Pete in New Jersey. You're on with Father Nathan Castle. Good morning.
Hi there. I read one paragraph from a woman doctor of the Catholic Church named St. Catherine of Siena. There's not many women doctors of the Church. And the reason that she is a doctor of the Church is that allegedly she had an interview with God the Father, just the voice only. And she asked him, what is the nature of man and of the Bible, the Scriptures? And allegedly, God the Father answered her. He said, I will tell you what it is. What it is, the answer to your question is that my name is He Who Is. And I call you my reasoning creatures, and your name is You Who Are Not. And without your help, I created you out of nothing, except that I am not able to salvage. I'm not able to salvage you from hell without your help. And that is the purpose of the Scriptures.
Interesting, Pete. Father, this is a very good conversation. Wish we had 16 more hours to do it, but your response to Pete in New Jersey.
Well, Catherine is a Dominican, as I am. She's one of the bright lights of our order. And, yeah, the book that you're referencing is The Dialogue. She had a huge mystical life. And she wrote down the conversations that went between her and God the Father. And it's not difficult to read. I'd recommend to anybody that have an interest.
Thank you, Pete, for your call. We've got to try to squeeze in as many callers because we want to. Let's say good morning to Crystal. She's been waiting patiently in Newburgh. Good morning. You're on with Father Nathan Castle. How are you this morning, ma'am? Crystal, are you with us?
Hello?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Do we have Crystal? I guess you'll have to call back. I apologize. But, Father, give us your interpretation. We have a few moments left here in the show. I wanted to talk more about your analysis of Pope Leo XIV. Obviously, the mainstream and legacy media has given us, I think, a lot of angles on this new American-born Pope. But give us some perspective. I find it fascinating.
Well, I was as surprised as everybody else to learn that we had an American Pope. The couple of things. As soon as I heard that he took the name Leo, it made me think of Leo XIII, the previous Leo. In 1891, he wrote an encyclical letter called Rerum Novarum on the new things. And the period right at the beginning of 1890 to 1900 and beyond has a lot of parallels with what's going on now. The pace of change is huge. There was the Industrial Revolution was bringing lots of people from the countryside into the cities. They were living in squalor. The Pope was trying to get the whole world to look at the consequences of the Industrial Revolution on the lives of ordinary people. I think Pope Leo XIV is very concerned about AI and about immigration across the world, not just in the U.S.-Mexican border, but all over the world. And I'm going to be teaching Rerum Novarum. If anybody in your audience is interested, they go to my website. I'm going to be doing that on a Zoom call. It'll be 2 Zoom calls, 2 hours each, looking at one of the ways the church operates is to look back and say, where have we been through something like this before, and what can our past teach us? So anyway, I'll be working on that. I think, and then the other thing that I would say about Pope Leo is that he wants to continue the synod process. Synod means the same way. Pope Francis was trying to have listening sessions all the way down at the local parish level and get information from everybody about what they think that the church ought to be doing, and it's clear that Pope Leo XIV wants to continue that process.
No, I mean, I salute him, and his obviously American name, in case people were not familiar, Robert Francis Prevost, and they show here living in a small little tiny childhood home in Dolton, Illinois. But what makes me really excited to follow in this, and I don't know much about papal history, Father, but it talks about him having the ability to, well, he got a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from Villanova, of all places.
Yeah.
That to me is, wow. So he's like a homegrown person for all of us can be relating to. Obviously, we find out that he also taught physics and math at St. Rita of Cassia High School in Chicago during his studies. So I think going on to the subject of all these subjects that we're talking about here, about reality, consciousness, the whole concept of the afterlife, and this thing called superposition, which many people in the astronomical world, not to change subjects on you, are saying that since the speed of light is pretty much finite, 670 million miles an hour, this whole thing in superposition or quantum entanglement, fancy terms, right, Father, that you could actually move across the universe in instantaneous speed. So we have now a Pope that I think is very much in tune with the science.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how his papacy unfolds.
Okay. Okay, let's go to Crystal in Newburgh. Sorry, we got a lot of static. It sounded as if you were on the planet Saturn, but good morning, Crystal. Thank you for being with us. Your comment or question?
Thank you, Dr. Sky. Sorry about that earlier.
It's okay.
Just wanted a couple of, comments or questions, however you want to look at it. But as far as the Earth being round or flat, I believe it's flat, and we're living. One second. We're living in a bubble under a large body of water that was created for us. The sun and the moon are under the bubble with us, with the birds in the sky, and not too far above our heads, maybe 30, 40,000 kilometers. And I believe that if you have two objects from two different points traveling due south, that this will prove that the Earth is flat or round. Because if the Earth was round, then they would meet at the same point at the South Pole, which I believe is an imaginary.
Well, Crystal, not to cut you short, I have a suggestion. I'm interested to hear your theories, and if you want, just send me an email to drsky, DRSKY, at WABCRadio.com. I'd be happy to get into a discourse or a dialogue with you on such questions. I mean, from the astronomical side, not to take time away from the good priest and good father, is that you go up into space and you do see curvature of the Earth. This can be proven. But, Crystal, I do thank you for your call, and hope you'll continue to join us here on the Dr. Sky Experience. That gives us a few more moments with our special guest, Dr. Father Nathan Castle, So summing up for us, we got about 3 minutes, and again, we appreciate your time once again for keeping you up to the early morning hours, but also to tell people how they can get in touch with you. Appreciate your time.
Well, I've mentioned the website a number of times, nathan-castle.com, and the YouTube channel is Father Nathan Castle. You can contact me through the website, and if people have questions about the work that I described, I prefer that they read at least one book so that when we do talk, we can have a richer conversation. I'm not repeating things that I've already explained. And then I didn't really anticipate that when I was writing these books that they would land in the grief support section of a bookstore. But they didn't know that. A lot of the people that pay attention to what I am offering are moving through grief. And if any of your listeners are moving through difficult grief, they might find some help in the stories that I've written. And after they've read a book, if there's a way that I can help them, all they need to do is ask. Just contact me.
Well, it's a beautiful story, Father, and I know in this extended version here, we wanted to give the time because there's no way, I know you agree, and I'm sure many people out there, that you can take detailed conversation topics like this and just shoot them into what? Between commercial time and other airtime. Of course. It's just virtually not possible to do it. So we appreciate what you're trying to do. And I go to this quote here as we almost end the radio show, and it's from Stephen Hawking, and he says, "The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge." I think, Stephen Hawking, wherever you are in the infinite, maybe on the other side of a black hole, a wormhole, or what have you, I think that's interesting because what do we try to do? Not only on this radio show to keep, saying it over and over and over, but by popular demand, we appreciate what the emails we get, talking about these great mysteries, things that we don't know from the, the physical side of the world, the world of science and the spiritual world. It's really a high honor to have you here. So thank you. I appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll do this again in the future. And blessings to you and all the parishioners out there. And congratulations again on your 40th anniversary in serving Christ as a priest in the priesthood in the Catholic faith. Thank you so much, Father.
Thanks. I've been praying for your audience for the last week.
And boy, can we all use it, my friend. Thank you so much. That's a beautiful thing. Folks, stay tuned. Coming up here right after this particular radio show, the Dr. Sky Experience, is Lionel, and he's taking us with great content into the deeper part of the morning here on Talk Radio 77 WABC. And also a really special thanks to Tony, who's the navigator. We call him the helmsman of this particular radio show, managing this powerful station, heard all over the world. And, of course, your response back to it is very positive, as we appreciate growing the radio station one show at a time. We do appreciate all of you out there. But, Tony, thank you so much for navigating, as we call you, a helmsman with the great power of the signal of this radio station. What do they say? And you hear it a lot here on this radio station. Encourage you to listen 24/7 to all the great programs here and all the podcasts that you can get, particularly a brand new Dr. Sky podcast from the Dr. Sky Experience. If you go there right now at WABCRadio.com or Red Apple Audio Networks. What about the late May skies, as we were talking about earlier during the opening act of this radio show? But tomorrow, some more interesting information, too. What could be more interesting? I should say additional information on the world of what it's like to be under the ocean. And we have a little bit of a recording from a gentleman I interviewed a long time ago, Captain Don Walsh. Who's he? He went down with one of the Picard brothers, of the famous aviators and balloon pilots, to the deepest part of the ocean. That was some 7 miles deep in a Trieste in what they called a bath escape. So, ladies and gentlemen, signing off right now, Steve Cates, Dr. Sky, your night bird of the airwaves. We'll see you in about 24 hours, Saturday midnight at 2 a.m. here on Talk Radio 77, WABC. Health and happiness to all.